What do you say to someone who asks, why did God do this to me, when they're talking about something bad in their life?
This is a perennial question. Maybe you've struggled with this. A couple of different ways that I want you to think about this. On the one hand, it isn't necessarily God who's doing something bad to you. This world is a sinful, fallen, broken place. And yes, Satan and his demons, they're busy. Sinful human beings are busy, and sometimes they can wreak havoc in your lives. But you can get through it when you shift the question just a little bit, from a why to a what. And you don't ask, okay, well, why did God do this to me? Because quite frankly, you don't know if he did this to you. It could just be a result of sin. But if you ask, what can God do through this for me? Now you're on to something. First Peter says that a lot of times when bad things happen, they test your faith and it refines it. One of my favorite stories in the Old Testament is the story of Joseph, where it's not God who does something bad to Joseph, but his brothers sure do. And at the end of his life, when it's all worked out and he's second in command only to Pharaoh, in Genesis chapter 50, he looks at his brothers and he said, "You intended this for evil, but God meant it for good, the saving of many lives." Remember, if God can save the world through something as horrific as a cross, if God can do something good with that, God can do something good even with the bad things in your life.
Yeah, and that's really the upshot. I mentioned Romans 8 a little earlier. You know, there's another part of Romans 8 that talks about how God can work all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. The fact is that there are good things and there are bad things happen. There are things that God causes to happen. There are things that are a consequence of a sinful world and sinful self and sinful people that we hang around with that happen. But God can use all of that to work together for good. But one of the things I want to mention, because the question specifically says, what do I say to someone who says that? And I want to caution you that having the answer in that situation isn't necessarily the thing to pronounce. That you may know all of those things, but what you may need to do is spend some time grieving with that person, or hurting with that person, or simply loving that person, or sitting quietly with that person. Because as a Christian person, our witness isn't always having the right answer. Being right is not what's most important. Loving and caring, demonstrating our willingness to be with them in these trials, gives us somewhere down the line the opportunity to share the right answer. But the most important thing isn't to be right, it's to love as God has first loved us.